Hello and welcome to the We Win podcast, powered by Accelerate Her Africa in partnership with the Human Pattern Institute. You are also welcome. I am your host, Lolita Ejiofor, and it's a pleasure to have you listening today. So, my next guest founded LagosMums in 2014 as a young mother searching for answers she couldn't find. What started as a personal response grew into a platform reaching 1.5 million people. A decade later, she went back to school to formally study cyberpsychology because she'd realized that hope is not a strategy when it comes to raising children in the digital age. Today, she advises CEOs on AI strategy and coaches parents on raising children safely in the same digital world. I am so thrilled to have her as our guest. So please, let's welcome Yetty Williams and begin. Hi, Yetty. It's so great to have you here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Yetty, you founded LagosMums in 2014 as a young mother yourself.
Yes.
Before it became the platform reaching 1.5 million people, it was a response to something you were personally experiencing. Take us back to that beginning. What were you responding to?
So, LagosMums, I actually founded it, I guess, unofficially in 2011. That was when the idea actually came to me because at the time I had a 2-year-old and a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, I believe. So real toddler, both under 5. And I had a lot of questions about motherhood, about work-life balance, about, what it would mean to raise children in a very different way. Different because I recognized even back then that technology was going to certainly be changing our lives. I didn't fully know how, but I knew that it was going to. And so I used to go online quite a bit to get information, research, questions, and all of that. And I found that a lot of the things out there were very based on the US and the UK. And this was me as a new mom in Lagos, in Nigeria. And I thought, you know what? I'm sure there are other people that have questions the same way I do. Why don't I start a platform that brings mothers together so that we can possibly find information that helps us, supports us, and everything. So long story short, that's how I started LagosMums, with the idea of just bringing mothers who might also have questions like I did about what it meant to do motherhood differently in the digital world in the 21st century. And so it started as a very small idea of just a blog, just to bring some moms together. And as they say, the rest is history, which I'm assuming we'll get into, about how that little seed just started. And little by little, I saw it grow and grow and grow. And yeah, it's been over a decade. Officially, I guess 2014 was probably the first time that I did an event that was tied to LagosMums. And that was when I had my very first parenting seminar at Whitbaker Hotel. And the idea was to just bring a few moms together to talk about parenting in the digital world. And what I called that particular seminar was Raising a Global Citizen. So this was back in 2014. So it was very like, global citizen. What does that mean? And I thought I'll get a room of 20 women, 100 signed up. And that became the start of my annual parenting conferences that I started having since then.
Such a fascinating journey, because I personally have benefited from LagosMums around the time you started, because I was also concerned about the digital space in which our children were navigating. And for you to have thought of this idea to set up a platform to give other women a space where they could talk about their concerns it's a no-brainer, you would think, but not a lot of women would take that very seriously and grow it to the extent to which you've done. So well done. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, you spent years building a career in finance and business strategy before founding LagosMums. When you made that shift, which part of your professional self did you most have to leave behind, and which part refused to stay behind?
That's a great question. When I started Lagos Mums, it was always supposed to just be, or initially the idea was just this side thing that I was doing while I was on my extended maternity leave. I never thought it was going to be more than that, more than just a blog, more than just an online forum that allowed mothers to kind of talk and communicate. But looking back, I guess it was the catalyst for something I call my 3 Ps, my passion to purpose to profit. So what did I bring from my working experience? I have an MBA. I'd worked in oil and gas. I'd worked in financial services. I'd worked in real estate. So one of the things I brought into this new venture I was starting was certainly systems thinking. So if you're starting something, what's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? The same way at work, you would have your 360-degree review and, you will certainly get feedback about how you were doing on the job. You knew what the JD was and all of that. And so I thought, all right, while this didn't really have any big goals at the time, the goal was simply create a platform that allows mothers to communicate and connect, right? That was it. And so I think for me, one of the things that I definitely brought in was structure, ability to think about the value, ability to express what value you're trying to bring to whoever is on the other side. And I found this became very helpful as I started to go down the monetization angle later, because I could be speaking in front of a CEO who's a 50-year-old man who's running an FMCG. And I'm here saying, this is my platform. This is what we do. This is why you need to be speaking to women. This is why mothers are important, And I would find myself, even though I'm starting I got into that room because I run a blog, the conversation very quickly went into what's the value, what are the KPIs, how does the company see itself participating in whatever program it was I was pitching at the time. Something else I would say followed me was certainly my MBA really taught me what it meant to network and be comfortable with networking. Stepping into rooms and being able to talk to somebody you didn't know and be able to very quickly, what they call the elevator pitch, very quickly be able to get your point across. And I think those were things that came with me, naturally. So those are the things that I brought with me. What I was very happy to leave behind was having a boss. And it was nice to just kind of do something that was from a place of passion and interest. It wasn't because of, getting paid. It wasn't about followers. It was just something I did because I thought it was a great idea. I thought it would help me and I thought it would help other people. So that's kind of, I think, the blend between my past life, my MBA, my professional, and how I brought it into something I was starting for fun.
Awesome. I think I love your 3 Ps, by the way, your passion, your purpose, and profit. And I can see how you learned a lot of things which applied in your new life. So from your MBA, how the power of networking, having an elevator pitch, being able to provide the value proposition to the person who's listening very quickly. But I get you on not having a boss, because I feel like sometimes it could be good. Sometimes it can constrain your vision and your dreams and what you're trying to put forward. So it's very clear that you have a very intentional vision as to what you want to put on the table and why you are doing this.
I wanted to add something quickly to that, I know people who are entrepreneurs, there's that enjoyment, if you will, or freedom of not having a boss. However, what I will say, I wanted to throw that in, is what being in a 9-to-5 allowed me to do was learn the power or the importance of having someone that you're accountable to. And I think we have to be very careful when we become entrepreneurs sometimes, that because there's nobody you're really accountable to but yourself, if you're not very careful and have proper systems and structures in place, you can tend to focus on doing what you like to do only and not so much what needs to be done. So I think that balance is very, very critical as well. And I think the longer I've been in running my own business, the more I've appreciated how important it is to create a board of accountability partners, if you will, whatever that looks like for you. Yeah.
Yes, and I absolutely hear you on structure, because that helps to have a system in place that works. Okay, so in those 10 years of building Lagos Mums, what were parents telling you that they kept hearing over and over, and that you eventually realized you didn't have a good enough answer for?
Great question. So I'll start with the first time I moved from just being a writer a blogger who liked to bring people together, to being someone that was seen as an expert. It was a journey. So I remember when I just started writing. It was more, things that I had personally experienced as a child that I didn't want to repeat with my children, things that I thought we could do differently. I also think the fact that I was raised in Nigeria till 17, then moved to the US and lived there for 11 years, those really shaped my worldview. I got to mix different cultures, different backgrounds, different values. So when I went back to Nigeria, I thought, wow, there are different ways to do things. We don't have to just repeat everything that doesn't work. Neither should we get rid of the things that are what make us who we are. But I do believe that we can systemize this. And I think that's something I was looking, when I was preparing for today, I thought one thread I've certainly seen through every season in my life is that willingness or desire to, how do we do this better? What does that look like? Whatever the thing is, whether it's motherhood, parenting, business, life, perimenopause, whatever it is, like how do we actually do things better with the information that is required so that we don't all have to stumble through things, right? So one of the things that stuck out to me was when I had my very first session, my parenting conference, I mentioned seminar, I didn't think I was an expert. So I brought experts together. The second one as well, I brought people to speak, and I was just like the host who welcomed people. And, I allowed all my speakers to be the experts of the day. And I just didn't feel like I had anything to add, particularly, apart from just being the convener. And then I remember very well, I was going to one of those GTB fashion fairs way back. This was, 2014-ish, 15, 16, maybe something like that.
Right.
And two ladies saw me on the road, on the way where how you park in Lagos somewhere, then you're walking in. And two ladies stopped me on the road and said, "Oh my goodness, hello, you are the Lagos Mums, aren't you? Oh, thank you so much." And they had a parenting question for me. Honestly, I can't remember what the question was. But I remember freezing in the moment because I thought, oh, hold on. I wasn't trying to say I'm an expert. I just write and bring info together. I remember my husband laughing and saying, "You look so shocked, like auntie." It was quite funny. And then after that, it kind of started happening a bit more. And then I recognized that, people are starting to come to me and they didn't just see me as a platform owner, if you will. It was, you're writing about this stuff, you're talking about it, we have questions about motherhood. So that led me down the line of, okay, if I'm going to be providing information from a place of thought leader, if you will, I need to know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
So then I went down this whole period of training and learning, which I'm sure we'll get to. But to summarize, one of the things that got me thinking, all right, I don't know, is when parents started asking me about parenting right. What does that look like? About discipline, about choosing schools, almost everything. And that's when I started saying it's important to systemize the information that's being given and help parents think through the long haul. Because I think many times parents will ask questions in the moment. They wanted what was easiest, but what's easy is not necessarily what's best long term. Yeah. So those are some of the pivotal moments that got me thinking, all right, this is becoming a little bit more than just a blog. If you're going to be the face behind helping parents be better mothers, you have to make sure that you own it so that I feel confident when I'm speaking up and talking to people about how to navigate all of those thorny questions, usually around discipline, screen time, phones, all of that was constantly coming.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You suddenly became the expert, and it's a great catch because you realize you need to augment what you know and become more than just someone who convenes events. We parents, we always have questions, and even recognizing those questions which are in the moment and those questions which deserve answers for a sustained period of time is a great skill to have. So I hope now if people stop you in the street, you're very comfortable speaking with them.
I've marinated in this now for over a decade. You can wake me in my sleep now. There's no question I can't answer.
After a decade of building Lagos Mums from lived experience, you went and formally studied cyberpsychology. Tell us about that. What were you looking for?
One of the things I tell people is I've been blessed to do Lagos Mums, to be a parenting coach, to talk to thousands of parents at this point, because Lagos Mums is not just about my lived experiences. Yes, that's a big part of it. But there's certain training I've gotten around developmental milestones, neuro-linguistic programming, meaning how do you think? Your brain is a muscle. You can train it to be what you want. What has happened in the past. But what do you want? And there's so much going on as an individual, as a mother, as a father, as a caregiver, that is going to directly make or potentially break your effective parenting. Because we're all parents. Whether it's effective or not is what we measure later. And it's one of those things that you can't do over. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but you really can't do it over. So you really don't want to mess it up as much as you can the first go around. And so it was lived experiences, intentionality. I created a parenting vision board for myself, for my children, for each one. And what that parenting vision board for me was a keen realization that I am not raising children, I am raising adults. Right. And if I'm raising adults, I'm going ahead of them to think about the adult I want to raise based on each child and what they've come to the world with. And I'm also a strong Christian, so very prayerful, very trying to, go deep in what are their gifts and what am I supposed to nurture? How do I do that? And then working backwards, because you're not going to have a healthy, well-developed, fully formed, intentional, balanced, all of those things we look for in a 25-year-old if you don't start the work from the foundation. So I mirrored those two things. One was learnings, one was research, one was lived experiences, and one was also talking to many people. And, most of us are only raising our 1, 2, 3, 4 children. That's all we know. In my case, I've had the opportunity, and I call it a blessing, to speak to many parents. So what I started to see were patterns. And when you see patterns, you can't unsee a pattern. So you can't undo that knowledge. So when I started, I was like, we can systemize parenting. It doesn't have to be random. It doesn't have to be luck. It doesn't have to be, hey, my God, you don't have to be defeatist. You don't have to be perfectionist. It's everything. Bring your whole self to it. But for you to be the best parent you can be, you got to work on your stuff as well. So that really became something I started to pour in. And like I said, I look back and I'm actually very systems thinking oriented. Like, all right, pattern. How do we repeat it? How do we not make the same mistakes? How do we refine this? How do we, so that was constant. And one of the things I've constantly seen when I started Lagos Mums to now is the biggest issue parents will come to me with over time was usually around screen time. More and more, if I talk to 5 parents in a week, in a day, at least 4 of them, it would be something with screen time related. And I started to see a pattern again that, screen time is one thing, but if your parenting style doesn't match your child's love language, how you talk to them, all of those things, you're going to have more drama with screens because you haven't built that relationship, empathy, understanding, the right language, the right narrative to be able to just lead your child in a world that's fully digital. They didn't ask for it. They've been born into it, so parenting cannot be how we were parented. That world doesn't exist anymore. But if you only parent from a place of fear, a place of worry, a place of, oh my God, these children, you build those walls, Gen Z versus us. By the way, all of that Gen Z stuff came from marketing. That's why they started putting us in generations. Right. It's not any kind of scientific Gen Z is like this, Gen X is like, But anyway, I always like going back to root of where did things come from, right? So all of that, I said, wow, this is really something special. And I particularly love the tech world. I love digital media. I do love that space because that's what helped my business grow. But I recognize that there was also the downside to it. So I was talking to a lady, a cyberpsychologist herself in Australia a few years ago. And I was talking about how I wish there was some kind of think tank or something where we're able to really come and talk about what technology is doing to us, to families, to individuals, And we stuck for a while because I know how to reach out to anybody in the world and talk to them. And she was like, have you heard of cyberpsychology? I'm like, really? What is that? She's like, you should check it out. It sounds exactly like it's up your alley in terms of what you're talking about and what you're interested in.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, okay. This was about maybe 3-4 years ago that she mentioned that. And so I started researching, and then I found a program that was all online. And I was like, oh my goodness, I loved everything about what it was going to teach us. Long story short, that's why I signed up. And when I say, what do I see myself doing into the future? It's really around humanizing technology, being at the center of what technology is doing to humanity. And we are not the same people we were pre-digital. So if we want to help the next generation, if we want to help education, workplaces, all of that, we need people that deeply understand the human side and the tech side. So that was my journey of how we all evolved, how we moved, and where I am today, and how I kind of foresee, if you will, my next decade of what exactly will my work look like. Because for me, it's really about, I think in phases. And as my children are getting older, moving on to uni, don't need me the same way they used to before, I'm like, what do I see myself doing? Thankfully, I'm optimistic about that phase. I'm not feeling like, oh my God, what am I going to do with myself? Nah. It's like, you know what, let's get this going. Let's even do more.
Yes. You know, what you said that struck me the most is that we're raising adults, not children. So we're raising that 25-year-old, 26-year-old, or whatever that age is, to become the best version of themselves. And a lot of us are stuck with this whole concept of not fully understanding and appreciating where these children are in their development, and even seeing lives in stages. But I guess if we really think about it, there are patterns and there are behaviors which are learned based on the environment we're in. And with cyber psychology, I guess you're able to see how the digital world has affected our children, and the best way as parents to manage the children navigating that world. All right. So you have said that hope is not a strategy when it comes to raising children in the digital age.
Yes.
What are parents hoping for that isn't actually happening? And what is going on in the digital lives of children that most parents can't see?
Yeah, it's something I say quite a bit. And hope is not a strategy. You can't hope it. There's no hope.com and just put your hands up and say, oh, well, you know. And so that led me, actually. So I wrote my first book ever, which I published January last year. And the book came from two things. One is a lot of people asking me after I talk and everything, like, do you have a book? And for the longest time, I was like, no, I just didn't think, what am I going to talk about? It's so funny, this imposter syndrome, we all have it. And it was like, really, no, what am I going to talk about? A book? To say what? Nah, So for the longest time, it was no. Then I remember when it started coming, like, you know what? I think it's time for a book. Like, I remember when that feeling came, like, you know what? It now became two questions. Which one was I going to write first? Because many years ago, there's something I called myself abundant living coach for moms. Like, I really believe that mothers should not be losing themselves in the pursuit of raising children. You are who you are. If you lose yourself, you're not giving your kids the best version of you. Sure. Eventually down the line, somebody somewhere is going to feel resentful, usually the mom. And who says we're supposed to disappear because we are raising children? Children are a part of your lives, but you are the full individual. So there was a time that was big on that message. So it was like, do I write a book about that? Or do I write a book that actually helps parents navigate this digital world they're living in? Because I was thinking about all the questions I kept getting in my coaching rooms, in my one-on-one sessions where I'm speaking. It's parents who are freaked out about digital. They're either worried, they're fearful, or they just throw their hands up and say, I can't hack it, so whatever, right? So in a long story short, I decided to write the book first around helping parents be more digitally aware. And I remember I told you about patterns. I'm a patterns person. I recognize in my practice that I came up with 4 archetypes of parents in the digital world. You can be the best intentional, hands-on, involved parents in the physical, but then you're totally neglectful online. It's not that you're a bad parent. It's not that you're a lazy parent. It's not that you don't love your child. You're just not aware that the online world is playing such a part in our families, our homes, our children's lives, that it can undo, it can mar,
Yes.
it can take away and detract from all the great values you believe you're, instilling in your child in person, right? So I said, you know what, I'm seeing something here. There's the regular parenting style, traditional one, but there's a digital version I'm seeing that could undo the good stuff. So I came up with 4 types, and I'll mention them quickly. The first one is the avoidant. So that's the parent who just avoids, just like, I don't get it. I'm fearful myself. I don't even know how to turn on the phone. I don't even know how to. So they just don't do anything, leaving the children many times to figure it out themselves, which we know is not ideal. The second type is the dependent. They use phones themselves so much. They're always online. They're probably the ones that will introduce their child to the iPad to be a digital babysitter just so that they themselves can have time to do things themselves. Or they use it so much that that's what the children see and learn. There's a dependence on screens.
Right.
Then there's a third one who's complacent. So they kind of know they should do something. They kind of know this is a bit dangerous and I should do something, but they're inconsistent. They kind of start and stop. Today they put a rule in place, they don't follow up, or they download the parenting software, but they never really check if it's working, or they're like, yeah, I know. Or they hope, usually they're the hope group. Maybe they also hope that school will figure it out for them. School will tell the children what to do, So they're quite complacent. They know they should, but they don't do much. And then the fourth type is the innovative one, which I'm hopeful everybody gets to. That's the one who is intentional, who's spending minimum 5 minutes a day learning what's going on in the tech world, what's going on in the online world, what are my kids doing, how are they using all this new technology coming up. You don't have to be an expert of it, but you have to be aware enough to use the language in a way that your child recognizes that, hey, mom, dad, they have an idea of what's going on in the online world, so I can talk to them. Once a child thinks their parents are irrelevant in their digital world, they are not going to bring anything to you.
Very true.
So it is a privilege for your child to even be bringing their online world to you. It means they believe you will listen, you understand, and you are interested. So roughly, I started to see that people fell within this bucket. And if you don't know what type you are, it's difficult to move. What are you moving towards? If you don't know you're avoidant and you're just thinking, well, I'm just praying. Hello, prayer alone is not sufficient in the world we live in today. So that's where the hope is not a strategy comes from. That's where, I started saying people need to, and I recognize, I call myself almost like the Uber of parenting. Before Ubers came, did we all know we would ever need a ride sharing app and stand somewhere and book a car and go? We never saw it coming. If they put us in a focus group, I'm sure we would never have said, oh, I need an Uber in my life, right? So sometimes you're going ahead and raising a level of awareness so that people's level of awareness increases. When it increases, that's when the village works. That's when the village works to help us raise these children in this world today. I need to know that the aunties, the cousins, my sisters, my, people that are my children's godmothers and parents and all of that, together, when our level of awareness is higher about what it takes, the stakes to raise a responsible digital citizen, then the village is working. But if we're all still staying in the past, guess what? That your village is expired and it's not working.
Yeah.
So for me, but my messaging is never about judgment. It's never about you are bad, you are lazy. It's about let's be aware and let's be understanding why we need to be more aware so that we can make better informed choices at the end of the day for these children. And not just my two, all the children in my life. How are we making sure that we are helping them to thrive in the world that we don't even know what's coming? Like that can be scary in itself. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what industry is changing. AI can do things it couldn't do 3 months ago, 6 months ago. So if you never get onto the ladder, guess what? You're going to be staying further and further and further away. And before you know it, if you're not careful, that gap where there's no language anymore between you and your kids gets so large that your kid is just looking at you like, this lady or this dad, they don't even know what's up. They don't even know what's going on. So they're being polite, but they're just waiting for you to finish talking about your past in my days. I just waiting. Okay, thank you. Have you finished with it? Can I please now go and do my days? So yeah, that was a long answer, but
it was a very valid answer as well. But okay, so in your experience, which of these 4 archetypes? So you mentioned the avoiders, those that are fully dependent on it, the complacent ones, and then the innovative ones. Where would you say you see most of our parents or people from our generation leaning towards? And for those parents who really know they need to do something, where can they go? What can they do?
So I love data. So when, people are doing all the surveys, I'm looking and seeing, what are people saying? So that quiz, it's a free quiz online, by the way. And I was looking at it recently because I'm building a product, which I'll mention later, to exactly help with what you said. Because when you raise the awareness and parents are like, all right, I want to do more. Like you said, then what? Where do I go? I don't have time to Google and figure out all these new things coming out and what to instill. And so what now? So, that's the goal of this product I'm building, that would essentially be like a third parent in your pocket and follow you through your parenting journey based on your unique perspective or your unique needs. So if your child is 6 years old, what you need to be seeing when you're a more aware parent is very different from a mom who has a child who's 14 or a son going off to uni. So the idea is it's not one size fits all at all, and it will be able to give you that information you need per age, per season, per milestone. So in terms of, to answer your question around what are the most common, I found that the first 3 is almost like, it depends on the day I check. Sometimes avoidance is higher. Sometimes it's complacent that's higher. Sometimes it's dependent. And I think most of us will see ourselves in a bit of each somehow. So some parents themselves, when they do, they're like, you know what? Actually, I'm so dependent on devices. You're right. If I think about it, what I'm teaching my kids is dependence on this thing. So I find that once again, I'm about the awareness. When we start knowing more, we do more. So that's what I found is a lot of times it's between those 3, but a lot of parents fall inside avoidance, right, or complacence. Because by the time you're doing that kind of quiz, I find that you're already maybe aware that, you know what, I think I need something. I think I need something. Do you know what I mean? So very few are innovative, and I'm hopeful that over time, that's, systemizing things. That's where we want to get to, is where more parents feel like, you know what? I get this. I understand what's up. I know what's going on. I know how to start dinner table conversations with my kids. They see me using this stuff. They know that I'm aware. I might not have all the answers, but because I'm aware and I'm willing and we're talking, I'm able to pick up where I need to go away, do some research. And then sometimes your prayer can be much more targeted. Like, because you know what's happening, you know exactly what you're trying to deal with. But if you don't even know, you're just, kind of flailing.
Yes. That's what you're praying for, everything and nothing. I'll give you an example. In my time with my son, I actually learned from your blog about Net Nanny. And it was just my way of understanding there is something happening in the digital space. And I was completely aware that there's something I needed to do. And so when I put this thing on his laptop, it gave me a sense of, right, there's some control as to where he goes, how long he stays online and all of that. And I feel like a lot of parents, if they do become aware, when they are also aware of tools they can use to help them to keep their children safe online, they would want to do it. So I guess the question is, where can they go? What can they do to keep their children safe?
Yeah, and I guess to answer that directly, I think I didn't touch on it. What do you do when you're away? Like you said, our website, LagosMums, has a lot of articles that can help parents say, maybe they stumble on we have a technology and parenting category. So if you kind of go there, we try to keep it updated. What I will say is that, gosh, that landscape has changed so much. So there was a time that, Net Nanny, Studio, Google has its own parental control, Apple family has its own. They were enough and they worked. They would block internet, they would block a phone, they would do all of those things. What we are seeing now is a child doesn't even need a phone necessarily to access some of this stuff. Yeah. AI, for example, is coming into things so much that children don't have to go seeking for it. So it's one thing to block it and say 9 o'clock, the device shuts down.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one layer of the parental software, which is good. But the question is, unless you are sitting with your child 24/7, when they are online, whatever they're doing online, you are not there. You don't know what is happening. So it's two things. It's the blocks are important, but I always tell parents, never rely only on that, because if you don't build the relationship and you don't build the, you want your child to have the agency to know when something is wrong, something is off, so I need to shut down, I need to do not disturb, I need to study, so I know that if I have my phone beside me, I am not studying properly. Or you're fooling yourself that you're studying, but you have 10 other tabs open. There's a level of that literacy and awareness that parents need to have the basics of, even if you're not like deep into it, to be able to drop it in your child's mind that, listen, I won't always be with you when you're online, but for your own good, I hope you know that if you're studying and you're doing many things, you're not really retaining. And that's going to impact you long term. Like, you need to have those blocks of conversation. So in terms of what parents do when they know is seek out information. Google is your friend. Just be sure that you're finding the right resources to help you. Start with something. Like, wherever you are, if you've never done something, start with something. Don't beat yourself up, because I think guilt is the thief of joy and is the thief of advancement. You're not going to advance if you stay in that pity party of guilt. I'm so guilty, I'm so bad, I haven't done anything. Okay, that hasn't helped you move forward, Yeah, so those are the things I would say. And then, of course, I'm always available because many times for some families, they need a unique family digital well-being plan, because every family is different. So when you kind of start with that's customized to you, then you can say, right, I have enough information, I'm aware, my husband and I are on the same page. Because sometimes, my goodness, you have some couples that have different views on digital, like totally different. Yes. The dad who's like, let them play, Joe, what's there? Maybe I played video games in my day. Hello, playing Tetris and playing Super Mario of our days. It's very different from some of these video games today that are so, my goodness, they can really mess with your mind. So, yeah.
Tetris, you just took me back there. Okay, so I know you've touched on this a bit, but I just want him to say in plain English, what does strategy actually look like for a parent who wants to do more than hope? What does intentional digital parenting require of them?
I would almost say start with an audit in your house, in your family. Like, if you wake up today and say, all right, maybe I've heard this for the first time, or I'm aware I need to do more. What is the more? If you're not quite sure where to start or where you're headed, it can feel like I love using analogies. It's almost like having a very powerful car in your driveway. But if you don't know how to drive, or you don't turn on the ignition, the car is not going anywhere. Yeah. So like, you have to have what am I trying to do? So I would say start with an audit. How old are your kids? How many of them are in the house? Who else is in the house? Because sometimes you can have all these perfect controls on your child's phone, tablet, laptop, and then there's one auntie in the house, or grandma, or a nanny, or cook, who has devices that obviously is not going to have controls on it because they're adult devices. Yes. And then the kids start to play with that when mommy or daddy have put blocks on their devices. And because they're so digital, they want to be online. They're going to pick somebody's phone, somebody's iPad, and might access things that they shouldn't. So I think starting with an audit is critical. What are all the devices in your house? How do your children potentially access the online world? Just do it. You'll be amazed how many touch points there are. And then suddenly you think, whoa, talking about 20 devices in this house that my child can get online through. And that includes everybody in the house. So I would say start an audit first. And then kind of be like, all right, great. These are all the loopholes that exist. Be comfortable with the fact that you're probably not going to plug 100% of those loopholes. But even if you plug 60% of it, guess what? You are much better off than zero. Yeah? Then it becomes, all right, what are we trying to solve for? Yeah. And then I would also say for parents, deeply understand your child. One very small one, I have so many examples in my head, but I want to take one example of a parent who recognized that, she had this tight, window on her child's phone. Tablet, everything, all the devices for a couple of hours per day, like 4 or 5 hours per day. But she found that the child was just not completing homework. So every time the thing shut down, the child would be like, but I'm not done with my homework. And she's like, why is homework taking you so long? The child too would say, don't mind my teachers, they give us so much homework.
Yes.
So mom would extend the time and everything. Until when we spoke one time and I said, when your child is supposedly doing work online, is there anybody around? Or is there any way you're tracking what your child is doing when they say they're doing homework? So we said, don't make it a big fuss. Just one day when he or she is doing homework, just kind of hang around and, spend time popping in and seeing what your child is doing online. They found out that the child will be on the laptop doing homework, but they have multiple tabs open. So they're supposedly doing research, but Snapchat is open here. This one is open there. They are popping in and out of windows. Hello, you are not going to finish your homework. Yeah. Even if you give it 10 hours, because you are not focused and you're not doing the work. So that led to, the child is not actually focused, which is why work was taking longer and the amount of hours she was giving her were not enough. That's just one example of when it gets to that level of intentionality and thinking, what am I trying to solve for? And you won't always know everything. You won't. That's just life. But when you're becoming more aware, in that case, we're able to be very specific on how she could make changes, how we also had to educate the child to understand what was happening even to their learning process. Yeah. Then we can introduce things like, because I'm also trained in ADHD coaching, by the way, but what I found with ADHD coaching is a lot of those interventions that work for people on the ADHD spectrum also work for regular people. Like a lot of the interventions work because we're all much more distracted than we ever were. So if you don't acknowledge the fact that by default as a human today, there's so much waiting to distract you. So what does that mean for you? This agency we talked about, adults need that agency as well. That when I get online and I say these are my tasks, how do I do it and not get distracted? So going back to what kind of parent do, number one, don't get overwhelmed. Do an audit of all the devices in your house, for example. Start to think about, are there any gaps that you're currently seeing that you think you'd like to solve for? So start from there. Maybe you're like, my child wakes up in the morning and they're always very tired. Maybe when you do that and you walk backwards, you realize, they're actually very tired because they take their phone to their room at night. And now that you say it, they take their phone to their room at night and they get up to go use the bathroom. What are they likely to do? To pick up the phone, and then what happens? Rabbit hole. Then the child sits on the phone for 1 hour. Yes. The blue light, by the way, affects the hormones that make you sleep. So you are not able to get back to sleep. Do you see what I mean about how you need to literally be able to these are the issues. And then you start to walk backwards. Once again, this is where your parenting style comes in. How you make changes so that you don't cause too much friction. If you're a parent who used to let your child go to bed and take their phone with them, and you suddenly attend one Yetty Williams parenting webinar, you're like, no more phone to your room. You now just go home like soldier woman and say, now that I know.
Yes.
Give me all your phones. You now start shouting on everybody. Hello, why are you shouting? Can you just be calm and communicate and explain how this rule now maybe is the rule for the whole family? And how even you have now realized that, that's why I wake up tired. Because these things are made to be so addictive. So as a result, there's going to be a new family rule. We're going to have a digital sunset and digital bed for all our devices. Those children in that second scenario are more likely to respond positively than the parent who goes and feels like, I'm going to shout and there's now a new sheriff in town. All of you, give me your phone. It's how you then do it. So I'm very big on let's be calm. What are you trying to solve for? What do you feel are areas you would like to improve? And once you start improving certain areas, a lot of other things, it's like a cascade, starts to, unfold.
So I don't know if you were a fly on my wall about 5-6 years ago when I was going through this. I felt you were talking to me.
I'm not shouting at anybody.
Okay, so AI has introduced something new into family life. Children are growing up with it as a given, not a novelty. What concerns you most about that, and what excites you about it?
AI has been around for a while. The one that has shaken up the whole world is generative AI, right? The ones that actually generate responses and seem so human-like, the ones trained on large language models, all of those things. That's what, because AI has always been there, Siri, all of those things. So what excites me is the fact that we can use it to be more productive. We can use it to be more efficient. I certainly use it. I have a whole board that I've created in Claude, for example, and that includes the chief of staff and head of content and things like that. And it's improving my content, right? So that's what excites me, is how much more effective and efficient we can be when we know how to use it intentionally and well. What worries me is, for example, with our younger users, our children, is that it's potentially helping them skip past layers of critical thinking that they need. So me using it because of all my content in my head that sometimes I feel I can't write fast enough, but I'm able to use the right AI tool to speak and do an outline, and suddenly those ideas become, right, and I'm able to say, no, this isn't right, this doesn't look right. I'm able to back it up by research and all of those things. It's very different from a child who's just learning basics of math, for example, and they give them homework, and because they just want to move on and quickly go play video games, they let AI do the homework for them. They submit the work, so they haven't learned that. And not every teacher is going to necessarily have the time to think and check, did you do the work yourself? Did you not? Is the AI? Maybe examination time comes and then the child doesn't do well on the exams because they don't have AI in the room, and then maybe they're thinking, what happened? Okay, maybe the child didn't sleep well. Maybe it was just a bad day. You can see how we can extrapolate into a lot of scenarios that's not, you're not getting to the crux of it. So that's my worry, is that AI is going to make children, for example, take shortcuts. Yeah. And it should be additive to your learning. It shouldn't be subtracting from your learning. So that's one big worry. Another worry I'm starting to see, or not starting to see, that's really out there, is what I call AI psychophancy. So AI is big on telling you what you want to hear. In layman terms, that's like AI being a digital yes man. It makes you feel so smart. Oh, that's so good. Oh, what you said is smart. There's nobody like you. Oh, wow, cool, And we're finding that there are some children who are not able to draw the line, or not even just children, vulnerable people who are not able to draw the line between, listen, this thing is a computer, it's systems, it's coding, it's a code that's giving me responses, even though it sounds so human. So if you're not careful and you haven't built those muscles around real relationships, real feedback, sitting with discomfort, knowing that I need to push myself through, right? Who says life is supposed to be easy? It is not. Things like that. And you have something that just basically is always glazing you and rubbing your head and saying you are the best thing since sliced bread. That also worries me, because we are seeing children building dependency on AI companionship, because AI is going to tell him or her what he or she wants to hear. And once again, it goes back to, it's not just about screen time. It's not just the parent saying, I'm only going to give you access to your devices from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. In that hour, your child can fall in love with AI. In that hour.
So scary.
So it's more about, there's something I call mental health first aid. Like, can you pay attention to things that are happening, that are triggers, that are red flags, that my child's relationship with the device, or when they go online, when they come off online, are they dysregulated? Is something going on that I need to pay attention to? But how you respond to red flags is important, because if you start to overreact and your child clams down, then you don't even get a chance to see what is happening online. So parenting today is like being a detective. In fact, it's not like you have to be a detective. It's like being FBI, but we love. And the reason we're doing this is not because we don't trust our children. It's because these platforms, these tools, the algorithms, all these things, they are very powerful. And it's not about willpower. They are very powerful, and they will distort the average person's view of the world and of themselves if there's not a stronger force that's able to say, I know the traps these things have set for the regular human being, because these tech bros are not thinking about humanity. They're thinking about is a race to who's going to get the most users and the valuation, all of that. They're not thinking about the most vulnerable users. So not to go on and on so much, but as much as I'm excited about what AI can do, I am very worried about the young people that are getting online, the vulnerable people that are using it, and people on the spectrum. People on the spectrum are more susceptible, because sometimes somebody on the spectrum already has difficulty with social skills. You now give them something that makes it easy to not need to talk to humans. Where and when are they going to learn those skills? So it's a huge melting pot of great, but also very challenging. And I don't want to worry or add to parents' burdens, but you must be aware of what is going on. As I say, we're parents for such a time as this.
Yes.
So we must learn what it takes to up the stakes, up our skill, reskill. They talk about reskilling in the workforce. Hello, parents need to reskill for what it takes to really raise responsible. And I think even if your child is in uni, 21, 22, 23, there's still so much work parents today have to be aware of. Is it about future of jobs? Is it getting work? Is it, there's so much going on that parents have to be plugged in, because I believe that now we actually have to follow our children a bit longer in terms of really being like coaches in their life, because there's so much out there that, how do I put it? Like, I think this is probably the first time you hear me sounding a bit like, I also talk to a lot of young adults and they're not ready to launch. They've graduated. You think they're not really ready to launch. They're not ready for adulting themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not 100% their fault. So what does that mean for a parent who thinks, my child has graduated, I can hands off, but maybe you can't, because of some of these issues that need to really be tackled so that the child is okay here with how they are thinking through what next. So you're asking me these questions that are making me really, really go in.
Go deep. Okay, so there's just so much that we need to be aware of. And I think it's that intentionality as parents to get involved, even when we think that the child is able to navigate on their own, because the world has changed. AI is doing all sorts of things. I'm really concerned, though, about the dependency on AI as a relationship. And so we really don't know those things that are creating mental disorders and things like that. All right. So for the woman listening to this who is navigating AI and digital transformation at work and trying to figure out what the same tech is doing to her children at home, where does she even begin?
I would say many times begin where you are. Honestly, just begin where you are. I'm a coach, and one of the things I love doing is when somebody books a session with me or we're talking and there's something called Socratic questioning, and it's the ability to ask questions behind the question to get to what really is the issue. So somebody can come and say, I tell you layer and layer and layer. You cannot solve everything at the same time. However, you can be on what is causing your discomfort. Is it a limiting belief? What is it? If you don't get to that, we cannot start to say, this is the prescription. So there's a level of so when I look at a woman, and I work with a lot of women, whether they're, interestingly, a lot of my clients now are actually UK based and US based, interestingly. And I tell people, I'm like, by the way, I believe that, we're not getting into a race situation here, but I believe that when you bring expertise, people don't care the color of your skin. They don't care your accent. If you can solve a problem and make it clear, what am I solving? I'm not making you feel good. I'm solving a problem. People are going to come to you.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this particular lady we're talking, and her issue was she thought she was going to be made redundant. She's a bit older. So there was a worry of, am I going to try and find another job? I don't feel like I'm really tech savvy. I don't even like technology, but everything is moving towards tech. My company has told us we should all use AI and has just bought these AI tools for us. but nobody has taught us how to use it to do work better. So the initial session started with much more of fear of being fired, not knowing what to do afterwards. And she's older, she's closer to retirement age. Anyway, long story short, I worked with her. This lady, when somebody moves from, I don't know the first thing about technology to, oh my goodness. In fact, she's like, so this is what's possible. And that analogy I used earlier, I used it with her and she loved it. The one of, you can have a very fast car in your driveway. If you don't know where you're going, you don't turn it on, you don't know how to drive, it's not taking you anywhere, right? It's not even as good as a bicycle because it's not moving you anywhere. So what am I trying to say? I think a lot of people have a lot of things going on, a lot of stuff. There's a lot of distraction, a lot of noise, a lot of fear. And if you don't know what exactly you are trying to solve for, you are not going to feel like you are moving. So what are you worried about? Oh, I'm just so worried about tech. What about tech are you worried about? I asked to a point that we will get to what is worrying you is different from what's worrying the next person. Then we can start. And when you feel that level of empowerment that you can solve this one problem you brought to the table, you take that energy and you start to move it to next problems and next things. Some are tech related. Some have nothing to do with tech. Some are in your head. Some is a voice telling you, you think you can use technology. You don't know what it is that's going on. So if you don't get to that, what are you fixing? What are you solving for? So my point being, as women, two things. We need to embrace technology. It's not going anywhere. It's moving very fast. We need to be careful that the digital divide doesn't separate women even more, because if we don't embrace this technology that's moving very fast, we're going to continue to feel left behind. And once getting left behind is entrenched in your mind and you feel like you have missed the boat and you feel like you are behind, then you are never going to get on the ladder to learn. And then the stakes get higher and this loop just forms where you just, you just resign like, oh, well, I'm done for, I can never figure it out. And then you never do. And that's impacting us in the workplace. It's impacting us at home. It's impacting us in society. There's some people that should be out there so that you're getting board positions. You're getting hired. You're getting asked to speak, but you're shy. You don't want to go online. You don't know how to use technology. So my point being, women are so complex. But when they meet somebody who understands them and speaks to them in a way that's like, but let's pick the one thing we want to start with. And help them smile. Help them come off that session feeling like, you know what? Thank you. For me, that's a win, because that woman is a bit more confident in whatever space of her life. And it starts to, it's like a gift that keeps giving. The next time she comes back and she's like, after we solve that issue of I don't even know how to use AI in my email. Now, you know what? I think there's one business I want to start. And I've been thinking, I don't know, the people say AI can help me. How can we are come now? So you just see that it just grows. And I believe women are like that. We don't just want to be told what to do or how to do it. We need to be shown with somebody in our corner who's helping us implement. That I recognized a long time ago. It's not just go and do it. It's available. This is how. No, until somebody stands alongside you to help with the implementation. Many times, I'm not saying there are not some women who just go, but majority that I've seen, they need that additional, right, do it together. And then you see the change happen.
I think we even respond more when women are showing us how to learn something new, and there's a sense of empowerment, women empowering other women. So you must feel a real sense of fulfillment. And that's the thing I enjoy about coaching as well. When a woman comes back and says, that discussion we had, I was able to do this. And then you provide more support where needed, if needed. Okay, so you study this world professionally and you are raising children inside it personally. What is that like? And where does the expert end and the mother begin?
In fact, my children say that I must share all my revenue with them because they are the ones that have made me
enterprising children.
Who I am. It's them that I use as my guinea pigs for everything. But no, jokes apart, I don't even call myself an expert. Honestly, I just call myself somebody who got into this space, loves it, and is able to help other people achieve their own ultimate goals by being a coach. And because I wear a coaching hat, if you're sitting in front of me and what you need support on is your business, we can do it.
Yeah.
If you land in front of me and what you're dealing with is trying to understand a child or trying to figure out exactly the path for your kid or yourself, we can deal with that. Coaching by default as a training means that I don't have to be an expert in the space, but I can help you move. Right. Mentoring comes in where the expertise is there. So, for example, I'm trained in, AI for business mentors, all of those things. So if I'm doing my business mentoring hat on, that's somebody who's in front of me and needs support to help their businesses grow in a digital transformation direction. And then we can do that. So really for me, for the longest time, I used to think it had to be either or until I recognized who said it can be and. Who said, you can't be integrative? And because I'm very human-centered. So it's who is the human in front of me? What is their stuff that they are coming with? And I'm very intuitive. So sometimes what the person is not saying, I'm asking questions where I'm like, it's as if you're in my head. And I smile because you need to get the stuff out so we can move. So for me, my children, I'm their coach, I'm their mother, I'm their biggest cheerleader. I tell them I love them unconditionally. I tell them if you make silly choices, life is such that there are consequences to these two choices. There are consequences and they need to own that. So some things I don't stand for is excuses. Make a mistake and own it. Yeah, I messed up here. I did this. That's growth. Yeah. Don't point fingers. Don't hide behind somebody. No. There's some things that I'm quite, mother, I will come out like, But honestly, I hope one of my biggest dreams is to raise adults who are confident, who can speak up, who know what they are good at. In fact, my daughter and I were talking the other day. She said, Mom, you should write a book called Strength-Based Parenting, that you focus on our strengths. Right. I don't say ignore your weaknesses, but it's like imagine you are raising a fish and you are using the yardstick of being a bird to fly to judge a fish. That fish will never feel good enough because they are supposed to swim. Yeah. But you are using the yardstick of, can't you see the other birds that are flying? Why can't you fly? That fish would never thrive as a fish. Right? So I don't know what we're talking about and I do a lot of deep thinking with them, talking. My son the other day, he said, Mom, I don't know what we're talking about. No, I believe in also exposing them to mentors and all of that. So we finished talking to a particular mentor and when we're driving off, I said, man, you really held that conversation very well. Did I have any part to do with that stuff? And he's like, actually, Mom, you raised thinkers. You raised us to be thinkers. So we talk about things like metacognition. I mean, that's the kind of conversation we have in my house with my children. Like thinking about your thinking. When you think about your thinking, you're more in control of what you're doing because a thought is just a thought. How you react to it, that is what you control. A thought, because it's a thought, doesn't mean it's the truth. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's the only thought So things like that. So because I'm very big on systems, mapping, I've tried to bring that to my children and where they see is somebody they can always talk to. And we've gone through some stuff that, maybe I find out later or the spirit tells me. So I go and say, this particular thing, this is the truth about what you did. They'll not be like, how did you know that? I'm like, I told you I don't parent alone. I parent with the Holy Spirit now. So sometimes it gives me expo, And, so that aside, but for me, it's how do I raise children where I'm always a safe space and they know, because I've trained myself with, I guess that's where the expertise side comes in. I've trained myself to be a calm person. I've trained myself to respond. Even, that picture of a duck, you don't see under the feet are doing, under I might be doing, oh my God, but I've learned that skill of just, really? Yeah. Tell me more. Oh, really? That's interesting. So if I know I can't respond calmly in the moment, I will find there's little skills you can do that will keep you calm, even if you're not a calm person, so that you can hear everything and then respond later. But too many of us respond so quickly. The children shut down. Yeah. They don't tell you again. They don't bring you back. They don't see you as safe space for that particular topic. So it feels like a lot of work, but once you start to work in your brain, your neural pathways start to align differently. So for me, it's one and the same, but I'm very intentional on raising each child for who they are, not for what I think, not for the child I think I got, but the child that is truly in front of me to nurture, to be the best version of themselves, for themselves. And so they know that they know what they're good at, they know what they need help with, they know how to ask for help. One of the things on my list was, as I'm raising a boy, he must have emotional intelligence. So that one is I'm not going to have one wife in the future that will be abusing this your mother. Things like that. So I'm very big on saying, what does it mean to be a man in today's day and age that understands his position, understands communication, understands all of those things. So yeah, that's it really. I just try to be me. I show up. I kind of try to be the best version. I'm not saying I'm the best. The other day I still asked my son, he's almost 17. I said, are there any areas you would like me to work on? Is there anything I'm doing that perhaps, you want me to change in terms of how we interact? I don't do that because I don't trust myself, but why don't we get feedback from the people that are Why don't we? You should be comfortable enough to get feedback. And when they tell you, listen, don't assume you know it all, and don't get upset when they tell you the issue that they have with you. So that is the only way we can improve, is showing up, being intentional. I don't try to behave like I know it all, and I hope my children will agree with that. I try to solve problems together. I'm like, let's discuss it. There's always different perspectives. Even if they don't like my rules, they have to understand my rules. Many times too, on the digital side, thankfully my daughter is off to college, but even up to when I stopped taking her phone overnight, it was so ingrained that they leave their phones outside the room every night. There's no argument because they understand where that's coming from. So I'll stop there. That expert parents, I think it's a mix of the two things. And I do think that my children feel that they look at the things I'm saying, I'm doing out there, and they don't think, they don't mind how, she's saying this, but inside, if only you know. But maybe you need to interview them to see, like, all right, this is your things your mom is saying. Is it actually what she does at home?
Yeah, I get you. Oh gosh, so many things you packed in there. But I feel that parenting is intentional. You can't do it any other way. You have to be zoned in on your children for who they are and not who you would want them to be, but also creating that safe space to have those conversations. You talked about feedback. Feedback is a gift. So if your child is comfortable enough to give you feedback, then it helps build that relationship, builds trust. And as you say, we don't react like mad women when we're being told what we don't want to hear. So I feel like it's a journey. Parenthood is a journey, and we evolve as the child progresses in life. And it's important to just keep that connection going so they feel like they can always come back to you for help and support or advice when they need it. All right. So our final question. I want to know, what do you hope for the generation of African children growing up in this digital world right now?
I hope that we have leaders, we have regulators who are thinking about them. Africa has the highest number of youth in the world.
Yes.
A lot of them are mobile first in terms of, their exposure to the digital world is usually through mobile phones. So that experience is a bit different. There are also a lot of children that are not even on the grid at all, not even online at all. So how do we balance those two? I do think that we need more protection for the African child online. So one very small example, there are certain things that are flagged, when they are moderating content on certain platforms. And because maybe we're using a language that's not one of the, most common ones, English, Spanish, all of that, some children go under the radar and are potentially being exposed to inappropriate content or being abused for a longer time, and it's not being caught because all the algorithms currently are not really prioritizing African, languages. So I really hope that we get to a point where we're thinking, all right, how are we protecting the African child to truly get the best of what the digital world offers? Digital literacy now shouldn't just be a buzzword. It should be a thing. Everybody should be learning. What does it mean to be digitally literate? What does it mean to be AI literate? I have gotten a grant for some years in a row going to schools, teaching children in schools in Nigeria and their parents about online safety. But not from a perspective of just change your password. That's not the one we're talking about. Anybody can Google that. The real things around what does it mean to show up in the digital world. So my hope is that we actually have a collective, that's thinking about the African child from an African perspective, and not hoping that the Western world will prioritize what the continent needs to thrive in the digital world. It's not their priority.
Yes. Well, thank you for what you've said, because it's important to still have these conversations about our African children who are growing up in a world that's meant for non-Africans, especially the digital world. But, when we put into perspective, in Nigeria, 42% of the population are under the age of 15. It is worrying because this age group are the most impressionable and most susceptible to digital vices. But thank you for sharing. And it's so important that we have people like you whose role and whose purpose is to create awareness for us parents as we bring up our children. Yetty, this has been such a great session. I've loved every minute of it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, Yetty, you're going on and on. But I think I'm passionate about this topic. Yes. And, also when the first time we spoke, I just thought, things you're doing, we connected on that first call. It's taken us a few months to get here, but I'm glad we did.
We did.
And I think your questions too were very insightful. And I think that's why there was a lot of ground to cover, because the questions were very, I could tell you did your homework. You went you went deep to get those questions out. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Yetty. Wow, that was one of the most insightful sessions I've had, because as a parent, I can totally understand the flaws and the mistakes we make when raising our children. And Yetty refers to raising our children as raising adults, because that's what they are becoming. And the roles we play is essential to what they become. So I would like to mention to those of us who give our children devices to comfort them or to learn from, to be mindful, to apply a sense of diligence. Yetty said we should become detectives and try and explore exactly what our children are doing when they're online. So I hope this episode resonated with you, and I hope you join me on the next episode. Thank you so much. Goodbye.